Today's world seems to move much too fast, and we find ourselves looking back longingly to the simpler days of our childhood. Petal, in the 50s and 60s, was a quiet, simple, unincorporated community. And life was easy, safe, and innocent. Petal's businesses grew up around the intersection of Main and Central in the heart of Petal. This became known as the Corner, and our lives revolved around the businesses there. Petal Mercantile, Petal Drug, Rogers Service Station, and Petal School. In the mornings, before school, we often went by Petal Drug. Dr. Pugh was usually in a small, cramped office before making house calls. In the drugstore, either Blackie McCoy or Mrs. Clearman would sell us our stash of penny candy to take to school. Crossing the street was supervised by one of the patrol boys wearing his official-looking belt. This was called the Little Building, which housed the first and second grades. We knew that behind those doors were the familiar smells of overripe apples and crayons, and the sounds of kids in their reading circles learning about Dick, Jane, and Baby Sally. On the playground were the giant swings, seesaws, and that metal maypole swing that usually conked someone on the head every day. Recess was fun and exciting, but ended all too soon at the clanging of that handbell from the principal's second-floor window. By the time we were in the third grade, we were attending school in the two-story building, where we finished the sixth grade. I can still smell the oily aroma of the floor-cleaning compound and hear hundreds of feet thundering down the stairs as Mr. Smith and the teachers yelled, "No running!" The clank of the flagpole chain could be heard in the quietness after recess. At the top of the pole flew the 48 state flag that was raised that morning by the safety patrol boys. The walk down the tin-roofed walkway past the popcorn machine led to the chorus and band rooms. The sounds of Mrs. Porter's pitch pipe and Mr. Carter whacking the edge of his music stand still echo in my memory. Back past the popcorn stand were the monkey bars that stood in front of Coach McKissick's home, built originally as a cannery for vocational training of World War II veterans. Nearby was the cafeteria's back door, where we waited in suspense for ice cream, apples, or shots. Across from the school was the Petal Theater, which opened around 1948 and remained in business for about 10 years. Saturday afternoons were spent there enjoying a triple feature, Coke and popcorn, for 25 cents. Coming out at dusk just in time to head home for supper. Across the alley was the Petal Post Office, where most residents had a P.O. box that was checked daily. A familiar face there was longtime employee Bonnie McCoy. Mitchell and Carmel Curry and their family opened the Western Auto Store here in the mid-50s. Western Auto soon became Petal's center for sporting goods, hardware, bikes, and Magnavox TVs. Lott's Jewelry and Odom and Easterling's Barbershop were next door. The barbershop was the spot for talk about sports, politics, or hunting. This was the Petal of my early childhood during the 40s and 50s. By 1960, the face of the corner had changed noticeably. The drugstore and service station had moved to make room for Ben Franklin's Five and Dime store, where Jewel Runnels was manager around that time. By this time, our age of innocence had given way to adolescent excitement and all that went with it in 1960. Girls and cars had replaced bikes and marbles. Pinball and rock and roll lured us to hang out in cafes. Automobile styling during this era seemed to reflect some of our other interests. Hanging out began to replace our more productive activities. The soda fountain at newly opened Dawson's Pharmacy was one of the favorite hangouts, where Judy, Larry, or Janie would fix you a great milkshake. Mac Rogers built a new modern Pure station next to his home, just down from his old corner spot. Across the street was a new line of stores that included Rivers of Petal and The Grill, which was another of our favorite places to listen to that devil music and play pinball. While rock and roll music was tolerated, dancing in the grill was strictly forbidden. The owner would panic and pull the plug on the jukebox if anyone dared to stand and move to the music. Neighboring businesses were the Petal Watch Shop and Nelson's Family Shoes. Petal Drugs was now operating in their new location, across from their old spot. Crossing the alley to Joe's Barbershop reveals Lee's red pickup, ready for Petal Mercantile's next delivery. A city bus arrived at Petal Mercantile every 15 minutes to take folks over town. A fearful feeling usually accompanied the echo of footsteps up this staircase to see Dr. Tatum or Dr. Koski. Petal Mercantile was the anchor store of the corner. Most people had an account here, and often had groceries delivered daily. The business was owned and operated by the Runnels family. When you entered these doors, Mrs. Wallace and Clarence Sanford greeted you by first name. Mrs. Runnels ran the dry goods and ladies' wear department, and young Bobby Runnels helped out throughout the store. The hardware department at the rear of the store was managed by the brother of J.O. Runnels, the owner. The sound of hissing steam and the smell of cleaning fluid let you know you were near Gaston Strange's Petal Cleaners, next door to Barlow's radio and TV service. Better Living was the newest and most modern food store in Petal at the time. By the late 50s, we were in junior high and moved to the new building across the campus. Lunch in the cafeteria was optional, and many chose to eat off campus. This was also the site for other events. In 1960, our prom was the junior-senior banquet, where we had the thrill of wearing formal gowns and suits to eat in the lunchroom at night. Dancing was not even a remote possibility. Just down the covered walkway from the cafeteria was the new chorus room and band hall. The new gym was built after the old wooden gym burned in the mid-50s. The new style was quite different from the old white wooden building. Lively sounds of basketball games echoed as you opened these doors. Walking outside under the arched support beams brought the echoing thump of basketballs on the gym floor inside. The walkway from there led across the street to the junior high wing, where we were introduced to the high school world. This area was where we took our recess breaks among the teachers' parked cars. Our snack bar was a Coke and a nab machine inside the double doors of the shop building. The agriculture and shop classes were under the direction of Mr. Corbin, and there was usually an old vehicle parked there for shop students to work on. The east side of the building was devoted to home ec classes for girls only at that time, under the supervision of Margaret Hinton. The walkway from home ec led to the main entrance to the high school wing. Opening these doors revealed a cacophony of class-changing noises and slamming lockers. As we moved past the stage entrance and walked the length of the auditorium outside, we approached the front entrance, a favorite location for group photos. These doors with the nautical-style portals were the point of our last exit from Petal High School as graduating seniors, saying goodbye to classmates, some of whom we would never see again. windows were actually the front entrance to the school and led to the administrative offices inside. Principals Johnson, Kraft, and Snowden headed up the school in this era. Some of the veteran teachers in high school were English teacher Helen Cameron, Lois Gibson, who taught geometry, Nina Hinton, math, and Lois Breland, who taught English and history. Passing the student parking area, we come to the boiler room, where male students were allowed to smoke openly. Not so for the girls. Society's views on smoking were quite different in those days.
Smoke that cigarette. Puff, 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 and if you smoke yourself to death, think about all the time you spent feeling a little bit more content by lighting up another cigarette.
On the eastern edge of campus was Roy Miller's hot dog stand, another of our teenage hangouts. Playing the pinball machine and jukebox were favorite activities, all under the watchful eye of Mrs. Miller, who did not hesitate to correct your behavior. Across the street from Roy's was Marcus James's Sinclair Station, where several students worked after school and on weekends. Down the street and across from the school was Young's Drugs in the old Petal Theater building. Burl Young and his family owned and operated the store and were great supporters of the school and football team. Friday nights were special when there was a home game. Much of Petal would flock to the football field to support the team, band, and cheerleaders. Memories are great when we want to relive our younger days. But while we hesitate to leave Petal of yesterday, we have to accept that time marches on. The contrast in the Petal of the 60s and the Petal of today is evident in its busy nature. But for those of us whose lives revolved around the corner some 5 decades ago, these are our memories. Memories that we want to keep alive, so that our children and grandchildren will know what it was like to grow up around the corner in those simpler times.